It's a Conspiracy is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown and community supported. For a list of other fun programming, please check out the albertapodcastnetwork.com, where you can find shows like the Dave Berta Podcast.
It's a conspiracy!
Record on this computer. Boom.
Why didn't you say anything? Why did you keep it to yourself?
Secrets. I like secrets.
You like secrets. Okay. Episode 13, Photon Bullet. Welcome back, everyone, to It's Conspiracy. This is the podcast where we lay out the beliefs behind sected. Welcome back, everyone, to It's a Conspiracy. This is the podcast where we lay out the beliefs behind selected conspiracy theories, alternative accounts, legends, myths, and more. I'm your host, Andrew, and I do not claim to be an expert on anything we're going to discuss, and will probably be wrong about everything as usual, because on top of not being able to write or research, I can barely count properly. It looks like in my rage, we skipped the number 11. I don't know, but it wasn't any kind of comment on the number itself. We're pro 11. I'm pro 11 anyways. Charlie, I hope you're
sure,
pro 11.
I'm all for 11.
Yep. And we just want to count all the way to, I don't know, like 15 without skipping any numbers. I don't think that's too much to ask.
Okay, to be fair, you also have a tough time getting to 10 for 10 fun facts. So it's okay, bud. It's okay.
I'm working on it. I just basic counting. I don't know why that's so bloody hard.
Some teaching aids. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So if you're confused, if you're listening along and you're like, didn't they say last one was 12 and they skipped 10 and wherever one we skipped. So this is number 13. And from now on,
we're back on track.
And Charlie, so how are we going to fix this here? You had an idea before we started recording.
I was just saying, every episode gets a number, even if it's a special. So no more bonus episodes, no more.
Okay.
So like even if it's the air fryer special, it's still episode 11, the air fryer special or whatever. Because this gets confusing and I get confused real easy. So we're just going to make it nice and simple.
Let's keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
If you'd like to see where we dug up whatever salty pleasantries we're going to discuss today, then please check out the episode description. Charlie, with his accurate counting, he scrolls through pages and pages of source code to ensure that every last bloody farthing and shilling is accounted for. Don't try to sneak one past him. Also, we are a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network. Yay, team.
Yeah, team.
Yay. You can check us out online at our website, itsconspiracypodcast.com. Our Twitter at Is It a Conspiracy? That's run by the social media influencer, the Irish Madman. Our Facebook page, the Instagram page, It's a Conspiracy Podcast. That's run by Greg. Our email and our Patreon page, patreon.com/It's a Conspiracy. Joining the online distance communication time today is Mr. Likes to Count Accurately, Charming Charlie, and he still maybe has a puppy in the house. Is there a puppy?
No, we had to give her back.
Oh, okay.
Our puppy sitting days are over.
That must have been nice for a couple days though, having a puppy around the place.
Very nice.
Yeah. And no cats, huh?
No kitties.
No kitties. That's too bad.
Mess up my allergies, something fierce.
Have you had any other than dogs? Have you had any pets? Were you allowed to have pets?
I had all kinds of pets as a kid. I had the classic beta fish, which at some point, once I changed its water, I put too much water in it, and it jumped out of its bowl and jumped onto the kitchen floor and took care of itself that way.
Oh, risky.
I had hermit crabs, which all at one point just abandoned their shells, even though they had new shells to go and grow into, abandoned their shells and ran around naked until they dried out. So they took care of themselves that way. So I kind of, I had a hamster, but there was no crazy stuff with the hamster. I just had a hamster. It was fine.
Okay,
so,
nice.
I'm not terrible with all animals, just aquarian ones, I guess.
Yeah, and you're deathly allergic to like anything from the ocean. So maybe
that's an eating thing, though. I can't ingest them.
Ah, so you can touch them.
Yes, which you're not really supposed to touch things like that anyways. But
yeah. Well, I guess that's how you get crabs, right?
Yeah, that's how you get crabs. Do you want crabs? Because that's how you get crabs.
No, thank you. No, I'm all good. Now, this is not one of our theories here, but is a fish a pet?
Is a fish a pet? Well, if you can't pet it, if you cannot in fact pet it, which I guess you can pet some fish.
That's dangerous. That's risky. then jumping out of the bowl, coming after you, which is what it was doing. it was not to bring up any sort of
me.
It was coming after you.
Finally, now's my time. Get him. I don't know, man. I mean,
yeah.
I thought I had given him a good life.
Yep.
But then one day, whoop.
No, it was too much for him.
Yep.
Well, with a yes or no, can you tell me if you've heard of any of these following theories here?
Yeah.
Number 1, Zermatism.
No.
Number 2, a Charlie Scream Monster of the Week with Charlie Scream.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay. Number 3, the Australian vampires.
No.
Okay. Here we go. Subject number 1, Zermatism. What a fun word to say. Zeds at the beginning of things are fun. Okay, so Easter Island, it's full of big sculpted heads. Do you know of the island of which I speak?
I do.
Okay, all right, Mr. Smart Guy, Mr. I can count to 13 without problems. Do you know a guy named Stanislaw Zukulski?
Not personally, no.
Okay, he's a sculptor from Poland. Do you know Poland?
I've heard of it.
Okay,
they make amazing sausage.
They do, yes, Polish and the sausages. He put together a belief called Zermatism. Fun to say, fun to learn about, all of the fun things. Looking through thousands of illustrated books, I have learned how to see. Since childhood, I have been addicted to seeing pictures in books. I learned not to only look, but to really see, for I did not know English yet and had to jump to conclusions. In fact, I evolved to other people a natural instinct for understanding things without knowing what they were. Looking became my life's obsession. When I am dying, I will despair over the fact that I will no longer be able to look and see. So that's the quote from Zukulski.
I see.
Yeah, there's a really good documentary, and we'll talk about it a little where that came from, called Struggle, the Art and Stuff of Zukulski, I think it is.
The art and stuff.
The art and struggle. I think it's called Struggle, the Art and Struggle, the Art and Life, maybe.
Okay.
So Zukulski claims that in the aftermath of the Great Deluge, the global flood described in the Old Testament, a select group of proto-humans survived and set to work on creating a new civilization based out of what is now Zermatt, Switzerland. And they came from Easter Island, so that's where they came from. And they went to Zermatt in Switzerland, which is where you get the term Zermatism, because they're from Zermatt.
The Zermites.
So this population had one universal language called Proton, the language that all others sprang from, and coincidentally is what we now refer to as Polish. So it was, among other things, beautiful to listen to and free from the shackles of grammar. So don't you worry about apostrophes with these guys.
Finally.
Yeah, right? All those yours. As humans spread around the globe, they really took this language and it eventually transformed into everything we know of today, which, like all the variants, were there, but there are still remnants everywhere. The proof of this is that all major cities around the world can be broken down into phonetic sounds in what we can recognize as like Polish building block words. For example, Babylon turns to baby lawn, which means old woman's womb, which makes sense because that's where humans apparently came from.
The front lawn?
Proof. The front lawn from the old lady's lawn.
You kids get off my lawn. Shape. It's just good hygiene.
Okay, Zukulski further went on to explain that we have, since the dawn of time, been secretly at war with Yetis.
Oh.
So these Yetis, once their own pure-blooded species, have been interbreeding with captured humans for thousands of years, and they have created a subgenre of human called the Jetisini. I think that's how it's pronounced, Jetisini, or Sons of the Yeti.
Oh,
so yeah,
the cool biker gang.
Sons of the Yeti. The Sons of the Yeti are not only responsible for the sightings of Bigfoots, Sasquatches, abominable snowmen, etc., but have also been responsible for all of the great terrors we have encountered as a planet. Zukulski revealed that figures such as Lenin, Bakunin, Kropotkin, Machiavelli, Winston Churchill, Farouk of Egypt, Khrushchev, and Fidel Castro, among others, were all Jetisini, intent on breeding out the pure Easter Island bloodstream. They're after chaos and destruction. We have to stop them. And we have to stop them by stopping interbreeding. So that's a little problematic right there. Yeah.
Interbreeding.
Yeah, you don't want to... So, Charlie, I'm assuming you're a Zermite? And you don't want to have a baby with one of the Yeti people.
No, I guess stay away from the Yetis.
Yeah, and it's hard to know sometimes. I mean,
Next time you see Yeti on Tinder, swipe the other way, buddy.
Swipe the other way. Is it swipe right? Swipe left?
Swipe left.
I don't know.
I'm too old to know that.
Zukulski was a phenomenal artist and was heralded as Poland's greatest living artist. His career was going really well until that pesky skirmish of the Second World War II broke out, and he was forced to flee the country. His style, described as bent classicism, puts together a number of the theories he had with Zermatism, the Jedysyny, and Polish folklore, which he saw as the legacy of the one true race of people. Now, if you'll permit me to share, can I share? Can we have share time?
I'll allow it.
Thank you, Your Honor. So here is one here. There is a painting. Can you see that there?
Yep.
Okay.
That's
pretty
a horny
cool.
dude.
That's a horny guy. That might be Pan, I believe. Yep.
Taking a break
here
from
is
glamour.
Yep. Here is a sculpture that he has done. I believe he did like plaster and then he put metal over the top.
Sure.
And yeah, if you look here, there's
those are some pretty ballin' D&D figures.
Yeah, for sure. And there's this kind of problematic eagle at the top. Oh, yeah. So very like lots of details, lots of elongated arms and limbs, and like lots of muscles. That's kind of bursting out. Here's another one there.
Oh,
yikes!
hello.
Yep. Yeah. We'll put these in the Instagram. Once again, we have to remember the time, so that can have a little bit of a feeling.
Sure.
And our painting here, which is very, very cool.
That's a super cool painting.
Yeah. I love this. There? I don't know what you would call this right here, but sort of the line from silver to gold.
Yeah. That's someone being dipped.
I think you're right.
Getting dipped or at least submerged in water in some sort of a mermaid-esque creature or serpentine-esque creature.
Very cool.
Pulling her hair.
And so classicism. Yeah. Do you know anything about classicism in paintings?
In its purest form, classicism is an aesthetic attitude dependent on principles based in the culture, art, and literature of ancient Greece and Rome, with the emphasis on form, simplicity, proportion, clarity of structure, perfection, restrained emotion, as well as explicit appeal to the intellect. That what you're looking for?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, I knew that. Everybody knows that.
While you were reading that, I just noticed something with this painting here. If you look down at the bottom, do you see my cursor? Where it's going?
At the bottom, it's surrounded by the little Easter Island heads.
The little Easter Island heads,
and you can actually see their bodies poking out the other side, which is a true fact.
Yeah, season 4, we'll have to go to Easter Island to dig these guys up and see for ourselves. To the island. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay. There clearly are folklore elements to this, as you can see, and the meanings behind it have been debated since the artist's death in 1987. Interestingly, Zukulski became really good friends with his neighbor, one George DiCaprio, the father of one Leonardo DiCaprio. And this relationship is how many people, including myself, discovered Zukulski as DiCaprio put together a documentary in 2018 detailing his life and sadly explaining a few questionable decisions in regards to the Nazis and Poland in the 30s and 40s. And that's one of those moments where you're like, you got your collar and you're like, eesh. Yeesh. So here's little Leonardo DiCaprio right there with Zukulski, just coming in for a little snuggle, nice hand on the shoulder. It's weird to see people that close and like nobody's got masks on.
No touching.
Yeah,
6 feet apart.
So, totally. And Leonardo, on top of other things, had the classic bowl cut that so many of us had as a round-headed child.
I mean, bulls made the best barbers. That old saying.
Yeah. So he's 11 years old in this picture. Yeah. And he's one of those guys where I do like Leonardo DiCaprio, but he's one of those guys where if anything has a hint of controversy about it, he's like, I'm out. So like he was going to make that movie about the Vikings with Mel Gibson a couple years ago, and then like a phone call with like Mel Gibson doing his whole Mel Gibson thing was released and his Mel thing, and DiCaprio was like, I'm out.
Yeah, I gotta go.
I'm not.
Right. Well, I mean, That's not a terrible,
Yeah, that's not a bad policy to have. It's just, but the minute the documentary came out and he produced it, but the only link with himself in it was there was that picture and just a very brief mention of and he knew Leonardo DiCaprio when he was a kid.
Right.
So nothing about his dad or anything like that in the documentary.
Huh.
And the Zermatism is an extension of all that. So here's a little quote from him that from Zukulski about being an artist and having beliefs. So if you can work for food, love a woman, fight all your troubles, and then have something left over, something unused, something that you have to put to work, then you are an artist. Maybe.
Maybe.
Perhaps. So maybe you are. Yeah, and we have done our art special, but that is one of those things. We talked a little bit about that. I am always really reluctant to describe myself as an artist, whereas you're an artist.
That's all I got, man. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a baker or even a candlestick maker,
No.
Make different forms of art.
Yeah.
I went into graphic design because it was a viable way of making art for a living.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do what you're good at. You don't have to work or whatever it is. Yeah. And you're also good at counting to like 15 without skipping anything.
I mean, I've been working
Mr.
on it.
Fancy. Yeah. So, Charlie, what were we drinking?
What were we drinking? Well, we were drinking the last night, or whatever.
It was a Friday evening. We got together for a little Friday evening bad movie group where we watch bad movies on Friday.
I enjoyed a couple cans of Bent Stick Electric Boogaloo. Double dry hopped IPA. Electric Boogaloo is the beer that helped turn our nano brewery into a real business. You drank so much that we scaled it up and put it in cans. You've done this to yourself. It's got a bunch of oats and wheat for that hazy softness you like, as well as a gluttonous helping of Citra, Mosaic, and Ella for that big fruity hop flavor. The double dry hop also means the tank has always been a big sloppy green bastard to clean, but it's worth it. Just barely worth it.
What an odd description. Big sloppy green bastard. Holy. Okay. What were we drinking?
What were we drinking? Right.
What were I drinking? Yar.
Hold on. What were we drinking?
Yeah. So once again, Sea Change Brewing. I feel like I always clang on about these guys, but they had this fundraiser again this week where for $1 you could fill up your growler, and then they're like, why don't you leave a little tip for the food bank? And last week they had like $5,000 raised for the food bank, so they did it again, and this time they had the Mexican Death Wave lager. Like, look at this, man! Just a skeleton on a can.
It looks amazing. It sounds amazing. The whole thing, just everything about it, amazing.
Yeah, really, really good. And this is like a bright green. So like even just looking at the can just kind of made me happy.
Is it teal?
I guess it's teal, Mr. Fancy. Wow. I can count 15 and I know what teal is. Okay. Sorry. And then it's got I want to say pink, but maybe that's
maybe a little bit more grapefruit. I don't know.
So a nice teal and grapefruit can.
Good color combo.
Yeah, good color combo. Looks really good. That's going to take us to ad number 1.
ATB Financial. Built to help Albertans is ATB's campaign to answer questions commonly asked by Albertans in these tough times. While the downturn is not over, ATB is ready to help Albertans as they try to rebuild and find their new normal. If you're wondering about how to manage your finances, rebuild emergency savings, or continue to save for your child's education, ATB can help. For answers to your questions and to learn more, visit atb.com.
Now we have got ourselves a Monster of the Week with Charlie Scream.
Yeah, here we are again. It's time for another Monster of the Week. This time, we're talking about a little old lady you might have heard of. We're talking about Baba Yaga Boney Legs. Baba Yaga, the notoriously evil wild witch of the woods of Russian folklore, which she's popped up all over pop culture as the subject of comics and movies and kids' books and cartoons and, heck, even operas. Her first appearance was in 1755, which was way before the Comics Code Authority. Russians commonly referred to her as Baba Yaga Kostianaya Noga, a.k.a. Baba Yaga Boney Legs. She's said to have a ferocious appetite, which she satisfies with her iron teeth by stealing, cooking, and eating her victims, which are usually children. Watch out, Greg. So also, I mean, don't forget to brush and floss every day, kids, or you might end up with a pair of iron teeth dentures, Oof. She's usually described as a single witch, a mortal being, but in some stories is described as 3 sister witches, all named Baba Yaga, which, for witches, must be the equivalent of being called John Smith or something. And her job seems to be guarding the fountain of the waters of life and death, which sounds like some pretty important stuff. To get around, Baba Yaga flies through the air in either an iron kettle or, more commonly, a mortar driven with a pestle, kicking up tempests wherever she hits the town. She lives in a forest hut, but it's far from your everyday run-of-the-mill forest hut. This hut spins continuously atop a pair of chicken legs that allow it to go anywhere it wants. And as often as it would like. The hut has windows that serve as eyes so it can see where it's going. Obviously, got to see where you're going. And it's said to move in a spinning motion and can only be stopped against its will by reciting a secret incantation which goes something like, little house, turn your back to the forest and your front to me. I think I've heard that in some R&B songs or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
If the visitor can pull off the incantation correctly, the hut will stop with a loud creaking groan and turn to face the visitor. It then lowers itself on its big chicken legs, and the front door bursts open. Baba Yaga's chicken hut bone fence with illuminated skulls and eye socket lights sold separately, of course. So now, if the visitor enters the hut, Baba Yaga will ask the question, did you come here of your own free will, or were you sent here? To which there's only one real answer, and sorry, but you don't get to phone a friend or ask the audience for help of any kind on this one. She's also got a lot of really cool stuff, She's got enchanted mirrors that can turn into lakes, combs and hankies that can turn into forests. She's got a flying carpet, and she's got some fire-breathing horses. Now, that all sounds like a mighty scare, but it's said that if you are protected by the power of love and virtue, or are under the protection of a mother's blessing, Baba Yaga will hold no power over you. Hooray!
Oh.
And
so
that's
nice.
Baba Yaga.
That chicken effect. We could just put that pretty much anywhere, at any point.
That's a keeper.
Well, that's going to take us to subject number 3, the Australian vampires.
I see you've played Knifey Spoony before.
So October 20th, 1989, Australia, the height of Australia madness, if Australia actually exists. Crocodile Dundee ruled. We all had boomerangs. Those stupid hats were a thing. And Dunkaroos were a staple in all of our lunch pails.
I love me some Dunkaroos.
Charlie, have you ever tried to throw a boomerang?
No.
Okay, I would challenge anyone, and this is open to anyone, to actually demonstrate that you can throw a boomerang and have it come back to you. I've seen it in the movies. I've never seen it happen in person. It doesn't. It's not. That can't.
It has to be.
That's not.
Well, it's got that curve, though. I mean, I've thrown sticks before, but they don't have that curve.
Yeah, sticks don't come back to you.
No.
But boomerangs apparently do.
If you do it right.
I just got to see it someday. Like someone actually throw it, it comes back to them. Like outside of the doctoring of film, I'm always like, yeah, that's not it.
The doctoring of.
Yeah. October 20th, 1989, Edward Baldock he's a staggering drunkenly on his way home from the pub, and he comes across a car full of young ladies. One of them offers him certain services in exchange for money. She's going to get his upholstery done, and Edward accepts. He needs his upholstery done. He gets in the car with the ladies, and they head off to the beach for some
reupholstering.
Edward takes off his clothes. He puts them in a little pile, and he's waiting for his new friend to show up when Tracey Wigginton runs up to him and stabs him ferociously over 25 times.
Whoa.
Yep. Wigginton returns to the car. She tells her friends what she's done, And then they all drive home in a state of shock, and no upholstering has happened whatsoever. The body is found the next day. Unfortunately, this is ghastly. The story goes, someone tripped over it while jogging. So someone's jogging along.
You didn't notice it? You were just like looking at your phone, checking your email.
In 1989, though, like you would have been jogging along reading a newspaper, maybe.
Yeah,
but that's
listening to your jamming out to your Walkman. or maybe you just like blind jogging, where you close your eyes or cover your eyes with a bandana and then just jog.
Oh,
yeah, that's one of my favorite jogging sports.
I think blind jogging should be a thing. And you're on the beach, why not?
Yeah, sure.
Who needs eyes?
Yeah.
Now, so the body's found. The investigation begins. Stunningly, in the little pile of clothes that Waldock had set aside, Wigginton's bank card was found. So at some point in the stabbing, she's like, I'm just going to put my bank card over here. Police go to her house. They find her super sus. They start working on her friends. They're all sus. And eventually they get her to confess to the murder by saying that her friends had told them what happened. But it was, it was a ruse. And then after she's arrested, she goes to court. And that's where things start getting a little strange.
Oh, that's when things get a little strange.
During the trial, Wigginton used a unique defense by explaining that she was in fact a vampire and did not live on solid food, but rather the blood and entrails of animals in the area. There had been a number of reasons why she was unable to get access to any blood or entrails in October of 1989, and she was simply forced to murder someone. Police and family were all equally horrified to hear her accounts of drinking the blood of Edward Waldock, but Wigginton explained that this was a basic necessity. Scary. Eek. Wigginton also went on to explain that there were a number of vampires living in Brisbane. So this whole thing happened in Brisbane, Australia. Most of the vampires were female, mostly living in peace, going about their daily lives, working, having families, etc. So just full of vampires, just,
not eating people too much, not drinking too much blood, maybe drinking some dingo blood.
Yeah. Wigginton eventually was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. She was repeatedly denied parole until eventually being released in 2012. And she is legally barred from contacting her former acquaintances, one of whom was convicted of manslaughter in the murder case, but was later acquitted. And she is forbidden from generating any personal income from the incident. So Australia has this interesting law where if you're arrested for like murder or something like that, if you get out of jail, you can't like write a biography and sell that to a
TV movie about that.
Yeah, make a TV movie about it. A lot of people do that. That's a lot of money, but yeah. So this case has brought a negative light to vampires in Australia, according to Georgina Condon, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Georgina Condon, we'll say, who is another Brisbane vampire who, unlike Wigginton, has a regular human partner who is happy to supply her with blood as often as she likes. So, yeah, Georgina is saying that people like Wigginton are giving vampires a bad name, and let's all live in peace. Let's just love and hug one another and be friends.
Come on.
Come on. Go to work and then go home and see your family and kiss your kids and tell your parents you love them. And that's Australia vampires.
Australia vampires. Wow. That's neat.
Yeah, it is neat. So, that's going to take us to ad number 2.
This episode of It's a Conspiracy is brought to you in part by the Edmonton Community Foundation. The Edmonton Community Foundation acts as a bridge between donors and charities to create a strong, vibrant community for generations to come. You can start an endowment fund yourself or with a group, and once it reaches $10,000, it can start distributing funds. Learn more at ecfoundation.org. That's ecfoundation.org.
Opinion time. Hey everybody, it's opinion time. We've all got opinions and we're gonna give them to you right now.
So Charles, what was our first theory?
I believe it was Zermatism?
Zermatism. That's right. Andrew, what was our second? It was the Baba Gooey and the long legs. Baba Gooey and the bony legs.
Baba Yaga bony legs.
Baba Boney. Yep. And then Charlie, what was our third theory here?
Australian vampires, mate.
Oh, and a nice little. I tried really hard to do an Australian accent.
It's so hard. It's
so hard to do. Yeah. So Charlie, do you think that Zermatism is a thing? And that we're all from Easter Island and we have Yetis, maybe?
I mean, I like the idea of it more as like an artistic movement kind of thing. I mean, I really like the idea of a story that everybody started off on Easter Island, and we all came from there with all the weird monsters and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there's definitely weird. There's definitely weird stuff happening in and around Easter Island with all with the skulls and the buried things and what have you. So
they got little bodies. Are the bodies really small? Or are they the same size as the heads?
I think they have little bodies,
little tiny bodies.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't know if that's where it came from, but I like the idea of it. Aside from any sort of potential Nazi imagery that the paintings and pictures contain, I think it otherwise looked like there was some pretty cool stuff happening in the art, like just the stylistically speaking.
Do you think, like this theory aside, do you think that kind of some of that associated imagery is why Zukulski is sort of lesser known?
Maybe, yeah, because it's definitely, and it's not like that's a new thing that society shies away from, right? Like this has happened for a while, ever since the war, like, so, I mean, that would be a good reason as to why it doesn't show up in all of the design or art history books as much as, a prominent style.
Yeah. Ugh. Guys like that, it's like, it's cool and there's some interesting stuff there. But the thing that bugged me was like, he's like, you want to do your part against the Yetis and the Jedisini, or however you say it. He's like, you make sure you have children with a pure-blooded partner who isn't part of the Yeti bloodline. Yeah. And it's like, oh, that's like racism. That's just straight up, like, who's to say who the Yeti people are? I mean, like, yeah, I don't know.
It gets a bit tough, a bit dicey.
Yeah.
a bit yeesh, as you put it.
That's right. It's a little collar grabber. Like, because like the last thing you want to be is like, hey, sweetie, I love you so much. Let's start a family. Before we do, can you like spit in this cup and we'll send it off to like.
We got to make sure you're pure Yeti.
Yeah. Well, what side of the argument you're on, and is it Warcraft where you're either a human or an orc? Like this whole thing feels kind of like Warcraft.
There are different. You could be a couple of different things in Warcraft. Yeah.
Okay. Is it mainly who are the two warring factions in Warcraft?
There's humans, there's orcs. I think there's goblins. Draenei are like kind of big cow people. So there's a couple of different ones in there.
Okay. Are you a little reticent to talk about your love of all things Warcraft?
You know what? I had a brief stint where I got a job, where I had a job in Warcraft, and it felt too much like a job, but I was doing it every day and losing days of my life. So I put a quick stop to that pretty early on with only one short relapse. A couple of years later.
Wow. We're gonna have to explore this further if you're open to talking about it. But I'll I guess we'll
that's fine.
Put a pin in it for now. Okay. And I think the Baba Boney legs. That
Baba
sounds
Yaga.
Like Baba Yaga. I think there's an often thing with like scary old ladies living in candy houses in the woods and like luring in children and all that kind of stuff.
In a lot of the Baba Yaga stories, young maidens would be either stumble upon this house or, so I think a lot of the stories are usually like a young maiden stumbles on this house and she goes in, and because she's pure of heart, nothing happens to her and she's given a blessing or whatever, and it turns out for the better. So then, the evil stepmother or whatever.
It's often an evil stepmother. Absolutely.
Takes the other sister or, an evil stepsister and says, hey, man, that worked out really great for her. So you got to go do the same thing without good intentions. And that's when stuff gets wild and curses start running rampant, brother.
Yeah, It is funny how the whole like demonizing of like step families is a constant theme in fairy tales.
Right.
All right. And then Australia vampires. I don't know. For some reason, for me, I'm like, when I think of vampires, Australia is the last country where I'm like, there's no vampires in Australia. They're all about like crocodiles and like throwing boomerangs that don't ever come back and having shrimp on the Barbie. I don't know why, but it just seems like those things could not exist together, like Australia and vampires.
Well, first of all,
yeah.
I mean, you have to believe that Australia exists in the first place.
Which is a stretch. I realize that. I acknowledge that.
So if you believe that Australia, in fact, exists, if you want to make mention of a previous episode, there's that. And then secondly, so these quote-unquote vampires went in sunny Australia to the sunny daytime beach for some shenanigans, for some pay-to-play shenanigans. Some reupholstering on the beach. Now, I don't think that sunlight is traditionally good for vampires.
Not traditionally.
No. So that gives me a bit of a problem there, right? So I don't know about that. I don't know about those vampires.
I will say this, when she's like, I only live on blood and entrails. I will say this, that we did try Vegemite previous to our second season, and entrails have got to taste better than Vegemite. I think we can agree on that.
I mean, yeah, that's
that stuff was real nasty.
That stuff was not good. No, thank you.
Well, wasn't that a morbid episode with dark feelings just below the surface that we skimmed over in an attempt to keep things light and frothy? We could have gone to darker places, but we're trying to keep things light and fresh. All right. It sure was. We really do appreciate you stopping by for a listen, and please feel free to rate, review, subscribe, tell a friend, tell your neighbor, tell your foes, spread the good word like flowers in the wind on a nice sunny day
at the beach.
When you're reupholstering at the beach. Yeah. You can check out all of our past casts and social media stuff at itsconspiracypodcast.com, and we will see you for our Chinese New Year special coming up real soon. And I'm so much excited. And Greg will be back. He had to work today, so
he's on another secret mission.
Yeah, we'd love to talk about it, but it's classified.
We don't even know about it.
Thanks for listening, and take care.
Bye.
$900 dues to buy us.